Okay, Canuck fans are losing their minds this morning, so I'm going to break up and break away from what I was going to do this morning to talk about this. Because is there something to talk about? Yes. Elliot Friedman clearly has inside sources. And I don't doubt him when he comes out and says things, but he's saying that the Canucks are in on Karlsson, but he's not quite saying it. He's saying that the talks about Karlsson being traded have picked up in the last few days. That's the sense he's getting. And that Western Conference teams are the ones that are stepping up. So, Dallas, you mentioned Vancouver. Let me go ahead and get a marker that works better. Oh, that one there. I would think Edmonton would be in on it. Other Western Conference teams that need help on the blue line. Colorado won't be because I can't see him dealing with Colorado again. Yeah, what the hell? I'll put Chicago up on the board. And Vegas, who was in on him before. So I'll go with those five, right? You don't get something for nothing. And you don't get Erik Karlsson without paying a lot. Now, I think for this to work, they have to get a top four defenseman back. They have to get a top-notch prospect back. And a first-round pick. Now, if you're any of these teams, the first-round pick should be concerning for Vancouver and Chicago. If you're trading Jack Hughes to get Erik Karlsson, and you're throwing in a top four prospect, or you're throwing in a prospect and a top four defenseman. Now, Vancouver on the blue line, is that Edler? Edler doesn't get it done. He's a rental this year, and I mean, I guess if they get Ottawa to sign him to an extension before they get him, and then he has to waive his no trade to go to Ottawa, that's the other thing. You have to find a top four defenseman on one of these teams that's going to say, yeah, I'll go to Ottawa. Dallas is intriguing because if you put Karlsson and Mathot back together, you got yourself something. But for defenseman or a prospect, you can combine those into one. The asking price, I would think, with Dallas would be Heiskanen. Now, the other whole wild card with this is, are the Ottawa Senators still insisting on Bobby Ryan being part of it? Because if Bobby Ryan is part of it, you're not getting this back. And that's where I find it weird. Because if I'm Pierre Dorian, I honestly, even though Eugene Melnyk may very well be pressuring him and saying, look, when you get rid of Karlsson, get rid of that Bobby Ryan contract. Fine. Make them separate deals. Maximize your return on Karlsson first. Then worry about the Bobby Ryan contract and trading it out. Somebody will take that money. Hello, Arizona. But getting a team to take on both is counterproductive because now you're looking for a team that's willing to take on money and that is willing to give up a mint to get your best player, Erik Karlsson. So it is a really dangerous game that's being played here by Ottawa. And if they're insisting on both, this is when Canuck fans step up and go, hey, we've got cap space. We can take on both, which is true. But again, Quinn Hughes is probably gone. I would think the asking price would be Quinn Hughes, and because Bobby Ryan would be included, you may not have to worry about losing that number one draft pick. But losing Hughes could be a massive loss later on. And the other problem that I have with it is this. Of the teams on the board, the only ones that you can look at and say, you know, they're close. Vegas was in the final, and adding Karlsson would be huge. Dallas missed the playoffs, didn't miss it by a ton. And you can look at Edmonton and say, you know what, they underachieved last year, and with a really solid Erik Karlsson on that blue line, Edmonton could be fantastic. The Oilers don't have the cap space to take on Bobby Ryan. Now, maybe they could work something out where Lucic goes the other way, but then that's taking on money that I am sure Eugene Melnyk wouldn't be happy with. And it's going to minimize the return on Karlsson. The one thing I've said the whole way along is you only get to trade Erik Karlsson once. This isn't NHL 18 or NHL 17 where you could just start up new via GM modes and just see what you can get from different teams. No. This is, you only get one shot at this. And for Ottawa, It is a very dangerous game. Now, I don't blame them for looking out west. But remember, they traded Hoffman west, and then San Jose turned around and got something back from Florida. They got more out of Florida than what Ottawa got out of San Jose for Hoffman, which is pretty stellar, losing 2 trades the same day, including one you weren't involved in. Do I think Vancouver's in on it? According to what Elliot Friedman said, Vancouver called in to see if they're a match. If you're a general manager in the Western Conference and you're not at least calling Ottawa, you're crazy. At least give them a call. Hey, what's up? And remember, another big point to this is one of these teams would have to sign Karlsson to an extension before trading for him. Which means Erik Karlsson has to choose to play in that city. I can't see Vancouver being at the top of that list. I can't see him saying, I'm going to go from one rebuild to another. Vegas, he can look at and say, I can play in the playoffs. Dallas, he can look at and say, you know what? They've got Sagan, Ben, Radulov, Nichushkin coming back. They got Bishop in net. This team could make the playoffs, and I could help them get there. Edmonton could be the same idea that, I'd love to play with Connor McDavid. Talbot's due for a bounce back. I can get this team somewhere. Chicago, I have on the board because Chicago is lacking in top-end defensemen right now, especially offensively. And Chicago could be seen as a team where you have a quick turnaround. They missed the playoffs last year. Everybody's picking to miss the playoffs this year, including myself. But honestly, if you add an Erik Karlsson, if you don't mortgage your future to do it, you might have a shot at making the playoffs this year. So, there you go. If there's any other team that you guys can think of, because honestly, at this point, it's a guessing game. And all Elliot Friedman did this morning with his tweet was just say, trade talks have picked up again, and it's because we're getting closer to training camp, and there's teams that are going to be nosing around knowing the longer this goes on, the more desperate Ottawa is to make a deal, and maybe you can cross one of these things off the list the further along you go. So let me know what you think a team's going to have to give up to get Erik Karlsson. I think it's going to be a lot. So for Vancouver, if it's just Karlsson, I would think Quinn Hughes, maybe Stetcher. And I say Stetcher because Quinn Hughes has an extremely high upside, and they're going to want a first-round pick, either this year or next year. Next year is a lot less desperate looking, and yet there's this Lafreniere kid that looks pretty good, and you don't want to be trading that draft pick either. As much as people are going to hoard this year's first-rounders for Jack Hughes, next year could be even worse. So there you go. And I haven't done a video on this new kid because I haven't had the chance to go over stats and to go over how strong this kid could really be as the number 1 pick in 2020, which everybody's pretty sure he's going to be. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And again, if Karlsson talks are picking up, I really hope he gets traded ASAP so we know where he's going, and then we can talk about how that changes the picture in the West, in the East, in a certain division, however it changes things. And most importantly, what the return does for the Ottawa Senators. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.